You ready? You ready? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the, what day is today? June 11th meeting of the East Hempfield Township Planning Commission. Please join me in opening the meeting with the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first item on the agenda this evening is partial reorganization, at least, because the commission has been reduced from 7 members to 5 members, and one of our regular members, the vice chairman, left the township, so he's resigned from the commission. So we need to take a vote on a new vice chairman. So as a reminder, I will open the nominations for vice chairman. Seconds are not required. Once we have all of the nominations, we'll ask for a vote. So, and I think at this point, it will be just the 4 of us voting. Yeah, they're alternates. Okay. I mean, at most we would have 1, but.
I couldn't hear what.
Question is, should we have an alternate vote or just the 4 members?
That's up to you. I mean, you have a quorum with 4 of you, so.
Yeah, I think at this point.
For the reorganization.
For the reorganization. Oh, yeah, for the reorganization later on. Yeah. So I will open the nominations for vice chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that I recommend our current secretary, Ann, as the new vice chairman. She did a great job last time based on what I saw in the minutes.
Yeah. All right, we have a nomination for Ann Byrne for vice chairman. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, the nominations are closed. All those in favor of Ann Byrne for vice chairman, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those, I think that was unanimous. So 4-0. Very good. So now, since Ann has vacated the secretary's chair, we need to nominate somebody for secretary.
I'll nominate Mr. Rohr for secretary.
Okay, Dwight Rohr for secretary. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, I'll close the nominations for secretary. All those in favor of Dwight Rohr for secretary signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. I'll take that as unanimous. I didn't hear your voice.
Sure.
Yeah, okay. All right, so that concludes the nominations. Since we do have a regular member absent this evening, I think. He's not on Zoom, right? No.
No, he's not.
Okay. I'd like to ask John Spangler to be a voting member for the rest of the evening. All right. Next agenda item is the minutes from the May 14th meeting. Does anybody have any additions or corrections?
I have a correction.
Okay.
Will you please note that I abstained
From
from
which,
the last vote, since I wasn't here,
Which one?
from the vote on the last minutes?
Yes.
to which vote?
I kind of mumbled it.
Which vote? What-
For the last minutes.
Oh, the minutes for the April meeting. Okay. So you abstained. Okay. So it was 301, I guess. 301. Okay. Are there any other changes or corrections? Additions? Nope. All right, then, if not, I'm ready for a motion on the revised minutes.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes as amended.
Let's see.
Uh,
That's interesting.
So you don't have to be present for the meeting to vote on minutes. There's nothing that says.
Right.
No, we don't. We don't have to abstain, but.
Right, but I probably will. So we need a second, though.
Do we
We
need-
need a second.
I'll make a second.
Okay.
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay,
Parliamentary.
we have motion to approve the revised minutes of the May 14th meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
I'll abstain.
I'll abstain. So
So that
Jim and
means-
Dwight abstained. John, no, so it's Ann. And John and John, okay. All right, now for the action item for this evening, Brookside Phase 6 Warehouse, revised final plan.
Is Pointer not up there?
All right, good evening. Kevin Ember here from R2. Also online, I believe, is Eric Scott representing the applicant who was not able to be here in person tonight. Yeah, Nate, that's great if you can start on the phasing plan. So talking about a project I'm sure all of you are very familiar with, Brookside in general, over the years, probably even what was previously Phase 6. So just to give you a brief update, we're on the north side of SWAR 1 in the enterprise zone portion of the project. And I believe back in 2021 or 2022, it was conditionally approved for a different warehouse on the north side of about 252,000 square feet. Due to some change in the market conditions, that plan never moved ahead with construction or recording. And now what is proposed, basically the north side has been divided into two separate phases. Phase 6 being what we're here for tonight to request approval of the plan plus a number of waivers. And then Phase 7 has been sold off as a separate condo unit, still part of the 30-some acres in the enterprise zone. That has been sold to SCTA, or the South Central Transit Authority. They are working on their own plans with their own land development consulting engineers and have a different process to go through with some of their federal funding and things like that. So we expect that they may be here before you sometime this year or next year with their own plans. But for tonight and what we're discussing is what is now the new Phase 6, which is about 18 acres of the property and what has now been reduced to 128,000 square foot warehouse building on the eastern portion of the property there. So we've worked with staff and David Miller Associates to address a lot of the comments from their June 6th most recent letter from DMA. We're basically down to just typical waiver requests, a few administrative items such as the cost opinion and kind of coordination with utility providers on their final review, and also a modification to the NPDS permit. So due to the kind of major redesign in this phase, this has come in as a new final plan essentially for Phase 6. A number of the waivers are typical with some of the waivers that have been granted before with the prior Phase 6 plan and other phases of Brookside. Happy to go through those one by one if you'd like, or I'll leave that up to the Planning Commission to decide. But basically, the general access point is still the same off of Yellow Goose Road, that it comes down through the site through a 60-foot existing private right-of-way that connects to Yellow Goose through this adjoining parcel. Then we're coming down here, and that the idea is that would remain in an access easement so that the adjoining Phase 7 for SCTA could use that for when their plans are developed. They may also look at a separate access through Yellow Goose Road, which would also be in a future access easement then as well, and serve as a secondary / emergency access for the warehouse we're proposing here. Otherwise, as far as stormwater controls, it's generally the same as before, except again, we're just dealing with half the site now for phase six essentially, that the stormwater basin is in the southeast corner. That handles all the stormwater control for the site, and that does discharge into Swar Run. So the Swar Run floodplain restoration, which if you've driven by recently is actually under construction right now. This project is not taken into account for any of that runoff. So there's a separate basin that's handling that. Due to some of the grades, there are some retaining walls around the site. Again, similar as before in phase six, but just a slightly different configuration. The employee parking would be on the southeast, and then a little bit larger lot on the north side. And then loading facilities are proposed to be in the rear here. Sewer would connect down to existing main and that it is adjacent to Swar Run. And the water is actually also going to be extended from the current master meter on State Road. It comes across the creek here and is going to connect into the facility here, probably with a fire pump as well to meet any fire service requirements currently shown in this corner, but we're also working with SCTA to see what their needs are. There may be some opportunity for a shared pump for that. And then the public trail connection, it's a similar configuration as shown before, that it comes across existing concrete farm bridge that crosses Swar Run here and then follows the eastern property boundary, follows on the east side of the basin, and then connects up to Yellow Goose where it stubs for a potential future connection with future development there. So that's the basic configuration of the layout. The applicant is still kind of going through marketing of this site and to determine if the end user may be split into a couple smaller uses versus one user. It kind of just depends on the market and who comes in to show some interest in the property. So I'll leave it at that for any questions at this point, or I can go through any of the specific waiver requests if the commission would like that.
Let's just take a canvas here and see if there's any general questions before we get into the modifications.
So I heard you say it'll be condo ownership for the phase 7.
Hmm.
Is phase 6 also condo ownership?
Yeah, essentially everything on east of State Road on the Brookside has all been
Gonna be-
condo, along with the Sheets and the bank and restaurant that are currently operating. That's so it's still essentially one large lot, but they've been separated out into separate condo lots
Okay.
essentially.
So how do they calculate the lot coverage then with a condo ownership? Does it go with the whole tract or?
The lot coverage is for the overall tract, was it not, or?
Yeah, I mean, we're still calculating that based on the overall tract. I think we did break it down since this side is partially in the campus zone and partially in the enterprise zone. I believe we calculated it per zone.
Okay.
But it's still based on the overall parcel.
Okay, because you're part of it, you're covering a lot of it.
Yeah, there is a lot. I will say that the phase does continue kind of, there's a strip along the creek to the east.
Down in the
So
floodplain.
there is some green area and there's a large wetland over there as well. So that is part of essentially this phase that isn't being developed.
Okay. I guess my question was directed to, so when somebody comes in for the other phases, are they going to be limited because you've used so much of that lot coverage?
I think it's just something we'll be tracking throughout to make sure that there's enough impervious available. I mean, the floodplain is part of the lot area too,
Calculation.
so obviously there's a
Okay.
lot of green space within there that's
True.
being maintained.
Okay,
And our engineer reviews it for the zoning requirements during their review.
okay.
I haven't been up on Yellow Goose Road by the warehouse. Are there sidewalks up there?
I don't believe so.
Okay, I wasn't sure on the one, if it looked, where that spur came down off Yellow Goose, it looked a little wider there, and I didn't know if that was indicating sidewalks or not. There's no sidewalks.
No, nothing currently that,
Okay.
that I'm aware of.
It'd be nice if that trail eventually just kept going east and not up, but
Yeah.
that's a different property owner, so.
All right, even though some of these are rather, as you say, common waivers, modifications, let's just briefly go through them one by one. If anybody has questions, ask them while they're on that topic, so we don't have to come back.
Sure. I'll just go down through in the order of the DMA letter.
Right.
So the first one is pretty typical, just based on the size of the site. We were requesting a modification to allow the overall sheets at a larger plan scale, such as the phasing plan here.
Okay.
Number two was related to, again, providing sidewalks on new streets. You know, here we don't, on this phase, there's really no property frontage per se, since it's just an access easement out to Yellow Goose. So we are providing, you know, the walking trail as mentioned along the east side of the property. And I think that's the approach that's been taken on other phases, just to allow the trail to kind of meet some of the intent there. The next one's also related to the walking trail as far as lighting. The intent, especially kind of in this enterprise zone, is that this would be a dusk to dusk type use trail. It is available for the public, but the intent is not to light it, so it would have, you know, access all the time. Really don't want people there in the evening using the trail. So we had requested a waiver to provide lighting for the walking trail specifically, but we are meeting all lighting requirements around the actual warehouse building and the access drive. Number 4 and 5 were basically the same as far as typical waiver or modification to install sidewalk, curbing, road widening. Again, for this phase along Yellow Goose, there's essentially no frontage. We are providing a wider access, I'll say, at 36 feet to Yellow Goose, and I'll explain a little bit for the reason for that in one of the other modifications. So again, those have been approved typically throughout other phases of Brookside. Number 6 is a modification request of the stormwater ordinance related to the loading ratio within the basin. Again, a similar modification was requested in the prior phase 6 with a larger warehouse. And just given that this is a surface facility and we don't have an extreme sinkhole risk here based on the analysis of the soil scientist that did some of the infiltration testing, we're asking for a slightly higher loading ratio, essentially the amount of impervious and the amount of total drainage area to the surface basin. And then number 7, this is one we worked through with staff and Diane Garber as far as any emergency services requirements. So if you have a certain number of trips that your site is generating, there can be different categories of emergency access or secondary access required. In this case, for a commercial use, we're below 500 trips for what is projected. And I think it was really more concern of staff and an emergency review to make sure that the future phase 7, since this will be at least one of their access points, that that is wide enough to accommodate you know, an emergency vehicle if there would be some sort of accident. So basically from Yellow Goose to the intersection here, we're providing that at a wider 36-foot width, just to, again, allow a little more flexibility. And like I mentioned before, the intent would be that either SETA would provide a second access to Yellow Goose, depending on their engineering and ability to get an easement. This is a separate property, I believe owned by the property owner to the north. But in the event that they cannot do that and would need their own modification, we're making sure that that's a wider width coming in here where, to accommodate, you know, emergency vehicle turning. So that was basically, the request of number 7.
Question on
And-
that though, before you go to the next one.
Yeah.
So what's the width of Access Drive? I can't read it now. Right, the one that's going horizontal there. Right there. How wide is that?
It's 30 feet here, and then since this drive mostly serves just the parking space
Right.
going to the south, that's 24 feet. And we did show that a fire truck does have the ability to navigate around the whole site, the whole warehouse building that's proposed.
So was there any part, during your discussion with staff, was there any what if that parcel 7 does not have a second means of egress? I'm just curious why that 30-foot piece shouldn't also be 36 feet.
I think the reason for that was like, once you get down here, you do have a secondary access that
Okay,
You know,
you
you
can split there.
could
Okay.
navigate around the building with a fire truck if there would be some, you know, blockage here or something.
And
Has the fire company,
Diane Garber, the emergency services coordinator, did the review and we met, her and I and the engineer met with Kevin regarding this. And the biggest concern we had was getting to access driveway K and J. So we wanted it wider from Yellow Goose to that point to make sure,
then they can split?
yes.
Okay.
And then the SETA, when they come in, they're gonna have to figure out something for emergency access.
Yeah, because the grade drop off
Yeah.
from the road there, I don't think they're gonna ever get another
Yes.
access point.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
there's,
Pretty
Right down
significant.
the hill.
there's some
Yeah.
things that we'll definitely have to work through engineering. It is a little bit flatter here. I don't know if you want to scroll to
Yeah,
the
it's
grading
still a pretty
plan,
good
Nate,
drop.
but,
I don't have it
Okay.
readily available.
That's a,
but yeah, I think the main thing is then if they can get that access, how does that work with their site grading, and can they make that transition work? Which, again, they have their own engineer that's kind of working
Right.
through those
Yeah, I
issues.
wouldn't count on it. That,
No.
that would be quite a project.
Yeah.
But we can move mountains today.
I think the other thing we did discuss with Diane is like, in the event of an extreme emergency, there is the ability too that with future phase 5 on the opposite side of the stream, if you recall that plan that was in here a couple of years ago now, there is a fire lane that essentially parallels the lower side of the phase 5 apartment along the stream. So you could potentially get a fire truck down there and run a hose across the walking trail bridge to get up here. You know, what we had looked if there's a way to actually provide a connection, but just with, again, with the grade on this side and coming up in the retaining walls, it just proved difficult to make that work for an actual truck to come up there.
okay, then, number 8's kind of mute, so.
I had a quick question. When they were going through with the ADT at the 100, did they forecast in terms of what they anticipate that to be?
As far as the
tr-
SCTA or for the warehouse?
Or the warehouse, or just in general?
The warehouse, I believe we're actually using a little more conservative number from the larger warehouse, which was around 268 trips per day.
Now, what about in terms of forecasting for growth, obviously with regards to the way everything, you know, is that forecasting in any additions as anything grows or anything like that?
I think for this side, since it's, you know, cut off from the rest of Brookside with the access to Yellow Goose, it's kind of limited to just.
I'm asking, I don't.
Yeah, it's just, other points of Brookside have access onto State Road and Harrisburg Pike, but here the only access will be to Yellow Goose, so I think it's restricted to just this site.
What is the property zone to the east?
I believe this is medium density residential, so we are providing a landscape buffer along that eastern boundary and kind of this corner down here, even though there's no development proposed.
That got rezoned from ag holding during the independence process, wasn't it?
Could have been, yeah. That whole thing is.
Excuse me.
That property to the east there. But I don't think the current owners are planning to develop, It's a farm.
Last we heard, he has zero desire to do anything but farm it.
right? But we don't know the next generation.
Yeah.
It might be different.
Yep. All right.
For a quick correction to my suggested motions.
Yeah.
This isn't a revised final plan. It originally was, but it's just a final
Final
plan
plan.
now.
Is there anybody on Zoom that would have any comments or questions?
No comments on Zoom.
Okay. Are there any other questions from the commission?
I have a question, but I don't think it's about this phase. So it's probably not relevant.
That's good. Go ahead.
All right, just throwing it
I
out
got
there.
lots of time.
So there's been a lot of water moving through this parcel for the last couple of weeks with all the rain that we've been having. Can you talk a little bit about what erosion controls are currently in place while everything is being done, while the infrastructure is being put in?
Yeah, so the stream restoration, there's perimeter controls kind of at some of the top areas and basically what's being done right now is some utility installation and grading for this future phase 5. And then the stream restoration, which was approved by DEP and is being coordinated by Land Studies as a sub-consultant for that work. So I believe there is some in-stream controls they have there. It could change just depending on the amount of water they have coming through. Since they did those plans, I don't have exactly memorized what controls they have in the stream,
Yeah,
but I know there is
Completely understand.
some level of control.
Okay.
Is all the excavating that's going on out there now part of the stream restoration, or is anything done on any of the other parcels? Or is there any construction other than stream restoration?
Yeah, I would say there is some excavation. So there is a good amount of fill that's required for the phase 6 for the warehouse. So there was already an ENS approved to just stockpile some fill in that area that was available from the contractor. So that is occurring on kind of the northern portion right now. And then the stream restoration obviously is underway. And there is some excavation for the future road connection and the utilities for phase 5. And that was because of a state grant for some of that utility work that was received by the developer.
Okay, if there's no more questions or comments, I'm ready for a motion on first the waivers, please, or modifications.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion. We recommend the supervisor's approval of modifications 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 7, and conditional approval of modification 5, subject to staff and engineer comments.
Now, second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Rohr, seconded by Mr. Boltby, that we recommend approval of modifications 1 through 4, 6, and 7, and conditional approval of modification 5, subject to all staff and engineer comments. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? So that would be unanimous, 5-0. Then for the final plan, we need to vote.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we recommend to the supervisor's approval of the final plan for Brookside Phase 6, subject to staff and engineer comments.
I'll second.
Okay, once again, we have a motion by Mr. Rohr, seconded by Mr. Boltby, that we recommend approval of the final plan for Brookside Phase 6 warehouse. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That would be unanimous as well. Okay,
Thank you for your time.
you're welcome.
Thank you.
Was there any old business that anybody would like to bring up? Any questions on June's project report from Mr. Sturgis?
I don't know, old business or public comment, but there's a tract of land behind the Turkey Hill, but in front of the U-Haul. That's part of the Turkey Hill tract. It's completely grown up in thistles. They're not, Turkey Hill's not mowed.
The portion, just to the west of U-Haul, right behind.
Right, so it's
Okay.
not part of U-Haul's property. It's part of Turkey Hill, but
Yeah.
it was farmed. And now it's just noxious thistle weeds, and I don't know if the township probably should notify them to get that.
Yeah, I mean, they are, on the noxious weed list. We do tell people they need to take care of them. The unfortunate thing is the timing of it doesn't really help
Oh, they're
anything.
just about to come into bloom, so they ought to get them controlled.
Yeah.
I mean, it's completely blanketed with.
In that general area, the Brookside, the new 7-Eleven, there've been problems with them there for the last couple of
Too.
years. and
Yeah, well, if we can get them before they go to
Yeah.
seed.
I think Brookside was great and took care of their portion almost immediately after being notified. We're still working on the rest.
Yeah, well, I think Turkey Hill may not remember that they actually own that piece. Because they mow the rest of their tract, but
Yeah,
they
so
don't.
they just gotta send them over back there once, right? Or a brush hog.
Yeah, I mean, get a mower in and mow it off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll let them know.
Thank you.
Okay, there's no further business. The meeting is adjourned. 7:34.
You too.
See you guys. Have a great evening.
See you, John. So what were we talking about before I so rudely interrupted and started the meeting?
Thanks for stepping up and being a vice chair and secretary.